Welcome to Beyond the Flare. I'm Ann Baker, a lifelong survivor of mast cell disease and someone who lives daily with chronic illness. But my story doesn't end there. This podcast is where I share how I manage chronic illness while pursuing a fulfilling and creative life. You'll find practical tips, personal stories, and encouragement to help you navigate your journey. Thank you for being here. Welcome to Beyond the Flare.
Welcome to Beyond the Flare, a podcast where we explore not just living with a chronic illness, but thriving beyond it. I'm Ann Baker, and I too have a chronic illness. My disease is called mast cell disease, and this is a show where we're going to talk about one of the most important aspects about having a chronic illness, managing your medical records, right? So stay tuned. We're going to dive deep into a few tricks that I've learned over the years, and I'm hoping that they help you out too. Okay, again, welcome back. I'm so excited to have you here. First of all, I'm testing out new backgrounds. So if you like it, let me know. If you have suggestions, let me know. I live in a very small home and I have very limited resources, but I really am trying to make this work. So I hope this works for you. I hope you like it. And if you don't, let me know that too, because I'm open to change. Yeah, I am. So let's get down to it, okay? Also, Brooke is running around here, back and forth. If things start to shake, she's about this tall. So if things start to shake, she's playing in the plants, but just so you know. And I'm gonna be reading from notes because that's what I do. I don't wanna miss anything. I think this information is really important, and I wanna make sure I get it all to you, okay? All right, so it's been a few weeks since we've had a podcast, and that's because I myself have been in a flare. I actually had 3 back-to-back, and so once you get a flare and then another one hits and another one hits, it really tears your body down. So I needed to recover, but here I am because I know what to do to get through the flares. And I'm back and my energy is good and I'm feeling great. And let's talk about medical records, okay? If you've ever felt like managing your illness is a full-time job, you're not wrong. I've said it before and I'll say it again, that having a chronic illness is a full-time job. That's all I can say about that. It is. So those of you with full-time jobs, this is like a second full-time job. It just is. So between tracking medical records, documenting symptoms, setting realistic health goals, the responsibility falls squarely on you, the patient. Or if you're a caretaker, a lot of it falls squarely on you, the caretaker. So today I'm going to break down some key areas of organization that can hopefully make a really good difference in your health, the health of the person you're taking care of, and all of your daily lives. The first one is keeping track of your health data. So let's start with medical records. If you see multiple specialists, and you already know this, doctors don't talk to each other. They say they will, but the reality is that it's up to you to make sure your records are up to date and accurate and all of the doctors are informed. I can't tell you how many times I have caught errors in my records, missing information, missing test results, misdiagnoses, or even outdated medical lists. And if I hadn't stayed on top of it, and if I don't stay on top of it, so for example, I was in the ER once, and an ER doctor could have made a critical mistake based on bad information, or in this case, no information, because he wanted to prescribe something for me that would have instantly killed me because I have a mast cell disease and I can't just take what other people can have. And so I had to stop him and I had to explain to him, I have a mast cell disease. And he said, I didn't know that. And I said, it's in my record. The first thing I tell everybody when I enter an ER or a doctor's office or anywhere, I have a mast cell disease. And so he thumbed through the records and he says, oh yes, there it is. And I said, okay, so don't give that to me. And he agreed. But if I hadn't caught that, I wouldn't be here right now. I just wouldn't. So you have to really be your own advocate. So there are some practical tips for managing your records, and the first one is to request a copy of all your medical records, all of them. Every time you visit a doctor or a specialist, request a copy of their visit notes, test results, or any updates to any diagnoses, medicines, or treatment plans. Make sure you have all this. Keep a physical and a digital binder or file. So doctors don't really want the digital documents. They don't want them. I have in the past brought in a thumb drive with everything on it, very well organized. But they either look at you like, we can't do anything with that because it's not compatible to their computers, they don't really know what to do with it, or they're afraid it's gonna have a virus on it and they don't want to download that into their system. I get all that. So what I do now is I bring a binder full of all my relevant current documents, and I give them whatever they want to scan in. And if it's a 3-ring binder and it's organized by topic and dates, all they have to do is pop it open and scan and pop it back in and be done with it. And usually by the end of my visit, the nurses have already done that. So the 3-ring binder is really essential. You don't have to keep everything in it, just the current stuff that's relevant to what's going on with you right now. And then maintain a current medication list. So include everything you take, including your dosages and your times, along with medicines you cannot tolerate. And this is really important because, like I said before, I could have been given something that would have probably ended my life, and that's not cool because I want to be here with you guys. So you have to have this. Doctors need to have this. They don't know everything. They have MDs and they're well educated, but they know a broad amount of things. They don't know the specifics about you and your disease. So you need to be your advocate and you need to be the educator. And let me just address before we go on any further, doctors don't talk to each other. Okay, I don't mean to make doctors out to be the villains. I don't. I have really good doctors. It's taken me years to cultivate these relationships. We're all in a good place, and I'm very, very happy with where I am with them. But the bottom line is they're busy. They're so busy, and they're short-staffed. So to expect them to get your records from their office to another doctor's office, it used to be like a no-brainer, but these days it's really difficult for them. They just don't have the capacity to do it. So it's not ill will and it's not neglect on their part. It's just that they're overworked. So be your own advocate and do some of the work for them and help yourself out. And it helps them out too. And they actually like you better when you do that because you're not putting more on them. So review your records regularly. So when you get them, before you give them to the next doctor, review them, go over them, make sure they are accurate. Don't assume everything is correct because sometimes it won't be. I had a misdiagnosis in one of my records from the neurologist. I'm just like, where did that come from? So I called them and I corrected it before. I had them send me a new updated description sheet, and then I sent it over to my regular doctor. So you want to read through those, you want to catch errors, and you want to stop problems before they start. It's frustrating, I know, that this responsibility falls on us, but it does. That's the reality. Welcome to Earth, right? Yeah. But you can be your own best advocate, or if you're a caretaker, it really is a bigger job than just making sure they're fed, housed, and clothed. Be their advocate as well. Know what's going on with them, whether it's your wife or your husband or your children or your loved one or somebody you're hired to take care of. These people are in your care, so take care of them. Stay organized. Staying organized can really be life-saving. The next tip I have for you is, I call it the power of tracking. So build a symptom journal. Symptom tracking is another essential tool for managing chronic illness. Flares don't happen in a vacuum. There are often patterns that happen a day or two before the flare happens or the reaction happens, at least with mast cell disease. I'm not an expert in other diseases. I'm an expert in mast cell disease, and I'm not a doctor. I will get other diseases on this podcast, I will, and I'll have other people come on and talk about them. But right now, we're gonna talk about mast cell, or from the point of view of mast cell, because that's what I know. So you won't see these patterns really unless they're documented. You might think about them, but having them documented puts it down in reality so you can go back and look at it and put the pieces together. Now, I personally use Excel spreadsheets for this. And my journal doesn't just track symptoms, but it tracks the weather, temperature, humidity, air pressure. All of that can impact how I feel on a daily basis. I track food intake for the last, and I look at it for the last 48 hours. What did I eat? How much of it did I eat? Where did I eat it? Reactions aren't always immediate, so tracking food over 2 days can help kind of pinpoint where these delayed triggers might come from. And it also could just be if it was something I ate out, but it's something that is assumed safe for me. It could just be the way it was prepared too. So it's really, really important to watch this and track it. And then your activity levels. So with a mast cell disease, any stress on the body can trigger the mast cells and release all the mediators that are in these happy little mast cells. And because I have a mast cell disease and I have more mast cells and more tryptase in my body than a normal person would, stress, like the least amount of stress, can just go boop and trigger them, and before you know it, my eyes are falling shut and I'm getting hives all over. And I don't like it. I just don't like it. I mean, if I were auditioning for the Broadway Cats, dude, let my eyes swell up, because then there would be no makeup required. But I'm not, so I have to go on with life. So you want to make sure that you watch that. Make sure you don't overdo it, or if you do overdo it, watch your body. You have to look and see what are the consequences from what I'm about to do. And if you know your histamine bucket's going to be really, really high, then you need to make sure that you're kind of taking your stress level and your energy levels down a little bit so you don't have these problems. So let me explain to you the energy bucket. We, as a mast cell patient, have 2 buckets. We have an energy bucket and we have a histamine bucket. And at the beginning of the day, the energy bucket is full, an ideal day, we'll say. And then the histamine bucket is empty. And as we go through the day, the energy bucket, at least mine, has like holes in the bottom. My energy drains pretty quickly. And the histamines can go up relatively quickly if I don't know how to pull them back down. So we want to make sure that the energy doesn't deplete completely, because then we have nothing to fight in our bodies. And if the histamine bucket fills up and overflows, now we've got a reaction. Now we've got a problem. So we're constantly balancing everything in our lives just to make sure we can function as a regular person in this society. And so that leads to emotional stress, because all of this is a mental stress. So we've got physical stress, environmental stress, internal stresses, and emotional stress. You see a theme going on here? Yeah. We as mast cell patients are very fragile. We just are. I know we don't look like it, but we are. Mental health is just as important as physical health. So stress can be a huge trigger. So for example, how do I manage that? I do a lot of prayer and meditation. I have a lot of quiet time. I take time away from the camera and away from modeling. And I play with the puppy, and I go out with my husband and we have fun. I read a lot of books. So that's how I manage it. Everybody has their own way of managing it, whether you go to the beach, some of you might work out. There's just different ways of managing that, but it's just as important as everything else I've talked about, and keeping it in perspective and in balance. So by keeping a detailed log of all of this, I've been able to spot trends and adjust my lifestyle accordingly on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes it's a morning to evening basis. So if you're struggling with pinpoint triggers, I highly recommend starting a journal, whether it's an app, a spreadsheet, or just a physical old-fashioned notebook. Get something out there and just start writing, start tracking. I think you'll thank me for that later. I also want to talk to you about knowing your limits. I touched on this earlier, but everyone needs to know their limits. I know my limits. I need realistic health goals. So before what I call coming out of remission with mast cell disease. I've had it my whole life. It didn't have a name until, what year is this, 2025, about 7 years ago. It didn't have a name. Nobody really knew what was making me sick. But before I really caved in and was doing really well, I was doing a lot of stuff. I mean, I was traveling the world and exercising and competing and running at my own company, and I had all kinds of fun going on. And then I crashed and I was asleep for like 18 hours a day, going to the doctor several times a week and taking all these medicines. And that's another story for another time. And if you want that story, I'll be happy to share it. But that's not what today is about. The point is, I decided I was going to improve my life. I wasn't going to die that way. My life was not going to end on the sofa. After all the education I worked to get myself through and all the experiences I had, my life wasn't going to end that way. So I started tracking things and I started changing things up a little bit. And it was because I tracked that data that I was able to do that. And it was a huge help for me. And my doctors were really thankful too. So you have to be realistic. So what does that mean for me today? Well, I exercise, but I don't compete. I don't work out like crazy like I used to. Am I as fit as I used to be? No. But it's not gonna happen anymore. One, I'm over 50. Yeah, my birthday is next week. I'll be 56. You can't be the same fitness level at 56 that you were at 25. It doesn't work that way. I wish it did, but it just doesn't. When you have a mast cell disease, you can only be as fit as your body will allow you to be. So you have to play around with it and you have to work with it. I am up to 10 pounds, maybe 12 pounds now of lifting. If I move higher, it will set off a mast cell reaction. So there's my limit, right? Running is not gonna work. Can I walk? Yeah, I can walk a couple miles. I can't run at all. There's my limit. With regard to work, the reason I'm a commercial model and not a movie or TV actress is because it takes a lot out of me to do these shoots. And the 2 movies that I was in is a lot of work. They're super fun. I highly recommend everybody doing background work. If all you want to do is background work, just to say you were in a movie, go do it. Just that alone is super fun. It's like a big party behind the scenes. But when you have a speaking role and you need to engage other people, it's real effort and work, and it takes a lot of energy. And between the travel, working, and then travel back, I was down for weeks. And I decided I couldn't do that. It wasn't going to be a sustainable career for me. So I switched over to commercials. And commercials are great because I can audition here at home with a self-tape. And then when I get booked, I go to the booking and it's a couple hours, maybe a day shoot, and I come back and I take a day or 2 to recover. And that works for me. And if I do a couple of those a month, I'm good. And that's how I work, because that's my limit. Travel is also a limit, so I can't take an 8-hour plane flight or a 6-hour plane flight. I get really sick. I can drive a couple hours, so here in Southwest Florida, I'm within 2 hours of Miami, Orlando, and Tampa. And so that works for me. If I get jobs there, I can just drive to them and drive back, and it works for me. If I were to get something from Arizona or Chicago or Montana, there's no way I would be able to do that and be well at the same time. That's my limit. So you have to know where your limits are. So we talked about the energy buckets, and the energy buckets can drain or go up depending on which bucket it is with all these different activities. In fact, and I don't know if this is true for normal people, I don't know because I'm not a doctor, but at least with me, the minute I wake up, my body does a histamine dump. So it could be a large histamine dump or a small histamine dump. So I always give myself an hour after I wake up to do anything to see how is my body going to react. Is it going to react? Some days it does. The other morning it did. I was eating breakfast and I broke out in hives on my knees, which is weird. Nobody wants hives on their knees, but that's where they happen. And it was just weird, but that's what happens. So I always have to get through every morning. Sometimes it's in my GI system. Sometimes it's just a major headache. Sometimes it's just my lips swelling up, which as you get older may not be a bad thing, I'm just saying. But you don't want your tongue swelling up. That's where you have a problem. So I have to really watch my buckets from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to sleep. And because of this, I have to be strategic each and every day. So I aim to accomplish 3 things. And sometimes they're big things like hosting a podcast and shooting a self-tape, or they could be small things like maybe I just take the puppy out, fold the laundry, and empty the dishwasher. But at least there's 3 things that I accomplished, and I really want to be able to accomplish 3 things every day. I don't do more than 3 things because even in my good days, it's really hard to get 3 things done because you've got the world coming in at you too. So kids call, doorbells ring, you know, people send you emails that you immediately need to address. So you've got to be really realistic about that. So what I accomplish every day is a strategic choice as well, based on how I feel that day. But the key flexibility here is, or the key point I'm making is flexibility. So on some days, I wake up with a plan. I plan out my whole week. I know what I'm doing Monday through Friday. I've got a set schedule. But I might wake up and my body has different plans. So I need to pull back, stay flexible, and see what else I can do. And it might just be a day I work on social media because it's about all the energy I have. You just never know. So that's okay though, because slow progress forward is still progress. Because the goal isn't perfection, it's progress. And it's about learning to live with your disease and thrive beyond it, and still live as part of a human race in this world, right? So my final thoughts here are that managing chronic illness is exhausting. I know it is. I'm exhausted from it. Some days when I'm in prayer, I just ask God above, why? Why? That's the whole point of this. I call it nonsense. And there's a reason for it. I don't know what. Maybe it's to help you guys. I don't know. But what I'm finding is getting organized makes it easier. Stay organized. Keeping your medical records updated, tracking your symptoms, being kind to yourself, having the grace to be kind to yourself. Because some days are going to be harder than others, and some parts of the day are going to be harder than others. But every step forward toward better management is a win. It just is. And this is what gets us beyond the flare when we don't feel well. So I'd love to hear from you. What systems have helped you manage your illness? What symptoms are you having that you'd like to have help with? I've got a whole collective group of people in my support groups who could help with that. We could bring them on and have a show on that. Let me know. Send me a message or comment on social media. I'm on Instagram, I'm on YouTube, obviously. And just send me a message and let me know. And if you found this episode helpful, like, share, and subscribe. Share this with somebody you think can benefit, because I'm really here not for myself. I never thought I'd be doing something like this, but I got urged by a lot of people in the medical community to do this, so here I am. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to keep doing it. And it'll get better every time, I promise. But share it with somebody you think might need it, because we're here to help. We're here to help each other and lift each other up. Okay, that's it. From me and from Brookie, until next time, take care of yourselves, give yourselves the grace to be human, and love each other. And above all, just keep thriving. All right, bye for now.